So I happen to be a huge fan of coffee-based fragrances. Despite the fact that I don't have that many in my collection, I think I've discovered the next holy grail when it comes to coffee-based fragrances. And this one is by a Greek brand, Theodoros Kalotinis, and the fragrance is called Coffee Addict. I'm very excited to give you my thoughts on the scent, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin my fragrance review of Coffee Addict by Theodoros Kalotinis, and I tell you all about this fragrance, what it smells like, what the note breakdown is, how long it lasts, so on and so forth, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content. So, in terms of the note breakdown, you have coffee, cacao, vanilla, and caramel. It's a very simple note breakdown, but this is one of the most photorealistic coffee fragrances that I've ever smelled. Now, it's not a black coffee type of a scent because there are some sweeter gourmand ingredients in there, so it does kind of take it in the direction of maybe one of those fancy drinks you would order at Starbucks or something like that, but I personally love it. If you're a fan of gourmand fragrances, you like wearing these types of fragrances, especially right around this time of the year, fall and winter, I think you're gonna fall in love with this. And of course, the perfumer is the namesake of the brand, Theodoros Kalotinis. I'm excited to break down the scent a little bit more for you, but let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. So of course, in the opening of this fragrance, you are going to get a blast of coffee. And now, I've always made a distinction between the way that coffee smells in the raw coffee bean form and after it's been brewed. And this is the raw coffee bean form, which is my favorite coffee type of smell out there. Now, there's another coffee-based fragrance that I do have to mention, and it's Follow by Kerosene. That one is not so much on the gourmand side, and that one is an equally photorealistic coffee-based fragrance, but this one has that gourmand twist. It does take it in a sweeter direction. And let me tell you something, if you are a fan of chocolate or cocoa, you're gonna love this fragrance. So it has that cacao pod ingredient in here, and I would say that that sweetness kind of supersedes the vanilla that's in here. Now, obviously, as you give it a chance to dry down, especially like 2 hours into the dry down, you are going to get more of that vanilla, so it does start to get a little bit sweeter in that sense. But I think initially what you're going to smell is the cacao. And I think there's a very strong relationship between coffee and cacao, to be honest. But you're also going to get a little bit of that caramel that's in here. And what the caramel does is it kind of adds like this creamy sweetness, a little bit on that milky lactonic side, but not overly so. The coffee is really sitting in the spotlight for this fragrance, and it does so for many, many, many hours. Now, despite the fact that I mentioned it could potentially smell like a drink that you would order at a Starbucks, it's not a novelty scent in any way. It's not kitschy in that sense. As a matter of fact, I had a couple people smell this one, including my wife, and the first thing they said was, chocolate. And it wasn't until after I told them, well, the strongest note is coffee, then they sort of reverted back and said, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, I do smell a lot of coffee. So for some reason, people seem to overlook or oversmell the coffee, and they think what they're initially smelling is chocolate, but it's a really, really nice blend of chocolate, coffee, and then of course in the way dry down, you do get that vanilla as well. Now, I think this fragrance has a bit of a playful side. I think it's a little bit flirtatious as well. I think it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think it's a perfect fragrance to make you feel warm and cozy, and it's just great for this time of the year, you know? I don't really see myself wearing this fragrance in the hot summertime. I think it could be a little bit too overwhelming, not necessarily because of the coffee, but on account of the gourmand ingredients. But this is one of the fragrances, and I do have a bunch of fragrances from this brand. As soon as I sprayed it on, I was immediately in love. If you're a coffee addict, or if you're a coffee lover, you owe it to yourself to try Coffee Addict by Theodoros Kalotinis. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, super unique coffee-based fragrance. Of course, I have a ton of coffee-based fragrances in my collection, and in terms of another photorealistic coffee scent, I also mentioned Follow by Kerosene, which I think is absolutely amazing, but this has the gourmand elements, and I think that that's what creates the uniqueness in this fragrance. The smell itself, I've never met anybody who had an aversion to the smell of coffee. The taste of coffee, yes, especially when consumed in certain ways, but I've never really met somebody who had an aversion to the smell of coffee. I love the way that it smells. I think it's very addicting. I think it's cozy. I think it's warming, and it's perfectly suitable for this time of the year. The longevity on this one, you can expect about 7.5 to 8 hours. Projection is great for the first hour of application. It will radiate within an arm's length, but it didn't actually start to sit closer to the skin until about that 5.5 hour mark. So the projection and performance that you're going to get from this one is pretty decent. In terms of the versatility, I think this one is best for the colder weather. I think this one can be worn casually and formally. I think it's perfectly unisex, of course. And I do see somebody who a little bit younger enjoying this fragrance, perhaps a little bit more on account of the sweet tendencies. But of course, these are just recommendations. At the end of the day, wear what you love, wear what makes you happy. And in terms of the presentation, it's a rather minimalist presentation, but I do like the name, and I like how it accurately syncs up with what you get in terms of the smell of the perfume. My final verdict on this fragrance is, if you are a fan of gourmands and you're a fan of coffee fragrances, and you want a coffee fragrance that smells ultra photorealistic, you need to try Coffee Addict by Theodoros Kalotinis. I'm going to leave all links I can find down below, especially if you are looking to purchase or sample this one. I hope there's a way for you to sample it. I think this is definitely worth sampling. Thank you all so much for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something of value from this video. If you did, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon. And once again, give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content. Thanks again for watching. Love you all. We'll see you soon. Bye.